something which you cannot see externally as well. Female Anopheles mosquito carries Plasmodium vivax, spreading infection from one person to another, causing malaria. So when the person has a runny nose, he has a cough or he has a sneeze, so droplets will be released in the form of aerosols to the atmosphere. This particular rhinovirus, it doesn't infect the lungs, but it only infects the respiratory tract and the nose. Hello everyone, a warm welcome to this session for class 12 biology. I'm Dr. Divya, biology faculty. So in this session of chapter 7, that is human health and diseases, we will learn about the terms or the definition for human health and human diseases. So we know that health is one of the important factors, and health is the one that actually helps us getting rid or staying away from certain diseases. So what is health and disease, and what are the different pathogens that actually deteriorates our health by causing diseases? We shall look about that in this particular session. So to begin with this session, we'll start with health. So health is a state of complete physical, mental and social well-being. So health is not just about the physical well-being. Say for example, if you have a pain somewhere, if you have a cold, if you have a cough or you just sneeze, that doesn't mean that your health has deteriorated. So health is something which you cannot see externally as well. That is, the mental well-being of an individual is also a term for health, and also the social well-being. So if you're physically and mentally stable, or if you're active, or if you're free of diseases, then only your social life can be good. So therefore, health is a combination of physical, mental and social well-being of a person. So this is the definition of health. So to maintain a proper health, we need to maintain or have a balanced diet which contains all the nutrition and protein in it and vitamins in it, and we need to maintain a proper personal hygiene, because our nails, for example, we don't cut our nails and it is filled with filth, and it will lead to a lot of health conditions, because with that filth a lot of pathogens will enter into your body when you consume food. Not just that, keeping your body clean will not attract certain microbes also. Therefore, we can be healthy. So maintaining personal hygiene is also very, very important. And also regular exercise is important, because if we don't do exercise and if we become a couch potato, then our immunity levels will go down and we are prone to a lot of allergies and diseases. So therefore, doing regular exercises is also very, very important. So to maintain a good health, we need to follow a balanced diet. We need to maintain our personal cleanliness or hygiene, and we need to do exercises regularly. And also awareness about diseases. So it doesn't mean that healthy person can be away from any of the disease. No, because there are some pathogens that can enter into the human body and cause disease. Only thing that to make our body capable to withstand the symptoms of that disease is possible by maintaining a good health, but doesn't mean that we are not prone to disease if we are healthy. So that's a wrong note. So therefore, diseases can happen to any individual, be it if he is healthy or unhealthy also. Awareness about diseases and their effect on the different body functions, time to time vaccination or immunization against infectious diseases, proper disposal of waste, control of vectors. So when I say vectors, I'm talking about mosquitoes. Mosquitoes are the vectors for chikungunya, for dengue and for malaria as well. So control of vectors and maintenance of hygiene in food and water resources are very, very important for achieving a proper health. So a healthy individual also, if he needs to not get any disease, they have to follow these steps. That is, any slight changes in the body function need to be brought to the notice of the doctor, and timely medications need to be taken, and we need to know how the diseases can affect our health in different ways. All that knowledge should be there. And apart from that, timely vaccination. Like many of us, we would have got the flu shots when we were kids or babies, right? But every year we need to take the seasonal flu shots to keep us from some of the allergies, some of the viruses and all that. So all that immunization, timely immunization should be taken for various diseases, and also proper disposal of waste need to be done, because a healthy surrounding or a clean surrounding also has a major impact on the health of the individual. And control of vectors and maintenance of good hygiene in the food and water resources are very, very important for a healthy person as well as an unhealthy person to keep diseases at bay. So that was about health. Now talking about diseases, when the functioning of one or more organ or organ systems of the body is adversely affected, characterized by appearance of various signs and symptoms, we say that we are not healthy and we have a disease. So unhealthy means it can be tiredness and all that also can lead to unhealthiness, but diseases means diseases can be infectious or non-infectious, and diseases are usually, they attack the one organ of the body or the organ system of the body, leading to complete deterioration of the health of the individual. So that is about disease. So now talking about diseases, as I told you, there are two types of diseases. One is infectious disease and the other one is non-infectious disease. So infectious disease are the ones which are capable of infecting others. So it is a disease which is contagious, which is capable of spreading quite easily from one person to another. So the diseases which are easily transmitted from one person to another, they are called as infectious diseases. And infectious diseases are very common. The most common infectious disease is a common cold, right? If one person gets it, the other person will also, who is prone to, or who is close to that person, will also get it. So infectious diseases are very common and everyone suffers from this one or the other type. And some of the infectious diseases are fatal, that is, they can lead to death. For example, AIDS, that is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, which is caused by the human immunovirus, is responsible for death of many people because there is no cure for that particular disease. So they can be fatal as well, and they are infectious because they tend to spread from one person to another. So what is AIDS? What is the organism that causes AIDS? How AIDS spreads from one person to another? What is the preventive measures? And all that we will study in the coming sessions of this chapter. So that is about infectious diseases. Now talking about non-infectious diseases. Non-infectious disease, the word itself says non, means it doesn't spread from one person to another. So among non-infectious diseases, cancer is one of the major disease that causes death of millions of individuals every year, right? And they do not spread from one person to another. So this is about infectious and non-infectious diseases. So infectious diseases or non-infectious diseases, both of these can be caused by pathogens. So what are pathogens? Those microorganisms which causes diseases in humans, in plants or animals, we call it as pathogens. But in this chapter, we are concerned with human diseases. So we'll talk about the pathogens which cause diseases in humans. So the disease causing organisms are called as pathogens. For example, we have bacteria, various viruses, fungi, protozoans, helminths, etc. So bacteria, we have Salmonella typhi, which causes typhoid for bacteria. Viruses, we have the HIV, human immunovirus or human immunodeficiency virus. Then for fungi, we have the fungus, that is trichophyton is one of the example which causes ringworm. Like protozoans, we have the best example for protozoan is Plasmodium vivax that causes malaria. For helminths, we have the roundworms or the flatworms like tapeworm. Then we have the roundworm, that is Ascaris lumbricoides. So all these are the helminths that causes various diseases. So all these are some of the pathogens that cause diseases. So the pathogens, how do they enter into a body? So they can enter into the body by various means, and once they enter into the body, they multiply inside the body or they reproduce inside the body, increasing in number, and they interfere with the normal vital activities, and therefore it results in morphological and functional variation in an individual, which is nothing but a disease. So therefore, pathogens are capable of causing a lot of health issues in a human as well. Pathogens in order. So now the pathogen has entered into the human body. They have multiplied, and not just that, the pathogens need to be capable of surviving in the environment or habitat that the human body provides. So pathogens, they are capable of adapting to various environmental conditions within the host body. Say for example, the pathogen that enters into the gut, that is the intestine, they must be capable of surviving in the stomach acid and the acidic pH of the intestine or the gut, and therefore they should be capable of withstanding various digestive enzymes that are acting upon digesting food. So the pathogen is in such a way that it is capable of withstanding acidic pH and also capable of withstanding various digestive enzymes. So for example, we have the platyhelminths, which are or the ascalminths and all that, which survive in the gut of the human being. So that is why they thrive there and they cause diseases in humans. So likewise, various pathogens are capable of thriving in various organs of the body depending on the environment and capable of causing infection. So let's see about the various pathogens that cause diseases in humans. So starting with bacterial pathogens. The first example that I've taken here is Salmonella typhi. So the name itself says typhi. It causes typhoid. So it is a bacteria. It causes typhoid fever, and these pathogens, they generally enter into the human gut, that is a small intestine, through contaminated food and water, and then they migrate to different organs through the blood. So that is how they reproduce, they multiply, and they move to different organs, causing high fever and all that. So that is about Salmonella typhi. So what are the symptoms? So a person suffering from symptoms, he has the following disease. So high fever, that is 39 to 40 degrees Celsius, weakness, body weakness, then stomach pain, constipation, headache, loss of appetite, that is not feeling hungry. These are some of the common symptoms of this particular disease. And also, if not treated at the right time, it can create holes or perforations in the intestine, and finally, because of excessive bleeding and all that, internal bleeding, death can occur in severe cases. So are these symptoms enough to say that the particular person suffers from typhoid? No. There are various diagnostic techniques that are used. In that, to detect Salmonella typhi in a typhoid patient, a particular test which is called as Vidal test is used. So this is a very important MCQ. So which is the test for typhoid? It is Vidal test. So moving further, we'll talk about one more bacterial pathogen, that is Streptococcus pneumoniae and Haemophilus influenzae. So Streptococcus pneumoniae and Haemophilus influenzae, both are bacteria which cause the disease pneumonia. Pneumonia is a disease which actually affects the lungs. Pathogen infects the alveoli of the lung, which results in fluid filling in the alveoli. And because the fluid fills in the alveoli, the circulation of oxygen will be a problem. So there are some symptoms here: fever, chills, that is feeling of cold, then cough and headache are few of the symptoms. And in severe cases, if not treated properly, the alveoli and the lungs can become permanently damaged, and because of that, no proper oxygen circulation can happen to different organs, leading to the fingernails, the lips turning grey to bluish in color. So these are the symptoms. How does this pneumonia spread from one person to another? So usually the symptoms are cough, sneeze and all that. So when he coughs, when he sneezes and all that, and a healthy individual is standing somewhere in the vicinity, then through aerosol sprays, the pathogen can spread to that healthy person when he inhales that or takes in that droplets. So that is how infection spreads from one person to another, through the infected droplets or the aerosol sprays. So next, let's talk about the viral pathogen. That is the most common viral pathogen that infects humans. That is the rhinovirus. Rhinovirus is the one that causes the common cold, and they infect the nose and the respiratory passage, but not the lungs. So pneumonia infects directly the Streptococcus pneumoniae and the Haemophilus influenzae, both of which are bacteria. They infect the lungs, that is the alveoli of the lungs, directly. But this particular rhinovirus, it doesn't infect the lungs, but it only infects the respiratory tract and the nose. That's it. They don't cause infection in the lungs. But if cold is not treated properly and if it prolongs, it can cause mucus buildup in the lungs and it can lead to some other problem. So apart from that, the pathogen will not directly cause infection to the lungs. And the symptoms are nasal congestion, that is blockage of the nose, and runny nose, that is discharge from the nose, sore throat, and change in the voice, that is roughness or hoarseness in the voice, cough, headache, feeling of tiredness. All these are the symptoms. And There is no cure for rhinovirus. We only have antihistamines which can bring down the symptoms, but there is no cure. If you take medications or not, the rhinovirus is going to stay in your body for 3 to 7 days and complete its life cycle. So there are only some medications that are available to control the symptoms. Now, how do this spread? How do rhinovirus spread from one person to another? We very soon catch infections, right? Again there, if you are not healthy, if you don't follow a healthy lifestyle and therefore your immunity comes low, then you are frequently subjected to getting infections from cold, that is from rhinovirus. But if you have a healthy lifestyle, if your immunity is good, then maybe you might have that virus within you, because it spreads, it can enter into your nasal passage and can cause infection, but the symptoms there will be a bit less. So spread. So droplets resulting from cough or sneeze from an infected person, if it is inhaled by the healthy person, say for example, the infected person will touch his nose or touch his eyes, and then he will touch the knob of the door or from pen or pencil or anything, and then you touch that region and you touch your nose and all that with that infected hands, then what happens? The infection can spread. So this is how it can spread from one person to another. Next is talking about protozoan. So one of the best protozoan that we can study here as an example is Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium malaria and Plasmodium falciparum. So the common disease that it causes is malaria, and Plasmodium falciparum, it causes malignant malaria. So this is an important MCQ. So Plasmodium vivax causes the malaria, which is quite curable if detected at the right time, but there is a most devastating malaria that is there, which is called as malignant malaria, that is caused by the protozoan Plasmodium falciparum, and it is the most serious kind of malaria, and it can even cause death if not treated at the right time. So talking about one more example for protozoan, that is Entamoeba histolytica. So it is a species of amoeba which causes the disease amoebiasis, which is nothing but amoebic dysentery. So the symptoms of amoebic dysentery are constipation, abdominal pain or cramps, then the stools can be filled with excess mucus, and also in severe cases the stools can have blood clots as well. So how do they spread? So the vector for malaria is the female Anopheles mosquito. The vector for amoebiasis is houseflies. So housefly carries this Entamoeba histolytica from one person to another, spreading the infection from one person to another. Female Anopheles mosquito carries Plasmodium vivax, spreading infection from one person to another, causing malaria. So these are the vectors. So we learnt about two vectors here. One was mosquito for malaria and housefly for amoebiasis. So housefly acts as a mechanical carrier and it transmits the parasite from one person to another, that is through fecus. So housefly usually they tend to go and sit on dirty areas, right? So wherever fecus or excreta is there, if the excreta is infected with this particular Entamoeba histolytica, it will sit there and then the housefly will go and sit on the food. If you don't wash that food and if we consume it as such, then the pathogen can enter into the body and the infection can spread from one person to another. So therefore, it can spread through drinking water, and food contaminated by the fecal matter are the main source for infection. So that is why whenever you eat something raw, please wash it carefully and reheat the food before, or cover the food properly so that the houseflies don't come and sit on that. The probability of getting infection is less, but we should not be in that count, right? So that is why it's always better to maintain cleanliness and cover the food properly and wash the food neatly before consuming them. So this is about Entamoeba histolytica. So next we'll talk about helminths, that is Ascaris, which is commonly called as roundworm, and it is an intestinal parasite that tends to reside in the gut of the human beings or the intestine of the human beings. So these Ascaris, that is Ascaris lumbricoides, they cause the disease Ascariasis, and they are commonly called as roundworm, and they have hooks and suckers so that they can cling on to the intestine and they can suck onto the food that is traveling through the, or partially digested food that is traveling through the intestine. So symptoms: internal bleeding can happen, muscular pain can occur, fever, anemia can happen, blockage of the intestinal passage. All these can happen because as and when they tend to grow, they will try to block the intestinal passage. So therefore, these are the symptoms of ascariasis. How do they spread? So the egg of the parasites are excreted along with the fecal. So a person who is infected or in his gut who is having Ascaris lumbricoides, so these pathogens, they lay the egg inside the intestine itself because that is their home, intestine of the humans. Now, when the human passes the stool, the eggs can travel through the intestine and come in the stool. Now, say for example, these stools, if it contaminates the soil or water, or if it contaminates the plant and a person consumes that contaminated water or food grown on that contaminated soil and all that without proper cleaning, then it can spread to a healthy person. So a healthy person acquires this particular, so these either the egg can enter into the person and it can reside in the intestine and can hatch and new ascaris can come out, or maybe the ascaris which is already hatched and those small baby ascaris can enter into the human beings, stay in the gut and then grow and cause problems in the healthy person. So a healthy person gets this infection or acquires this infection through contaminated water, vegetables, fruits, etc. So this is how they spread. So next let's talk about one more helminth, that is Wuchereria. So Wuchereria, the two important ones are Wuchereria bancrofti and Wuchereria malayi. So they cause the disease that is elephantiasis or filariasis. Here also mosquito is the vector and it carries Wuchereria bancrofti and Wuchereria malayi from one person to another. So the name is elephantiasis or filariasis and Wuchereria is a filarial worm. So Ascaris is a roundworm, Wuchereria is a filarial worm and the name itself says elephantiasis. It causes swelling of the legs and the leg will just look like an elephant's leg. So completely causes a morphological change in the leg of the person. So symptoms, a slowly developing chronic inflammation will start that of the organ in which they live for many years. Usually the lymphatic vessels of the lower limbs are the region. So these organisms, that is Wuchereria, they enter into the humans and they will attack the lymph vessels. So when they reside in the lymph vessels, they'll clog or they will block those lymphatic vessels and which will lead to inflammation. So it will inflame the legs and the legs will start to swell. And the genital organs also, in severe cases, the infection can spread or the lymphatic vessels can block the genital or it can block the drainage of the lymphatic fluid of the genital region also, and it can cause the swelling of the genital organs and also deformities of the leg and deformities of the genital organ can happen. So how do they spread? So Wuchereria spreads or it is transmitted from an infected person to a healthy person through the bite by the female mosquito. So here also mosquito acts like a vector. Filariasis or elephantiasis, the mosquito, female mosquito itself is the vector. So for amoebiasis, housefly is the vector. So moving further, we'll talk about the fungal pathogen. So fungal pathogen, the most common fungal pathogen that we talk of belongs to the genera Microsporum, Trichophyton and Epidermophyton. So these fungi, they usually infect the epidermal region of our body, that is the skin, the toenails, the cuticle region of the toes, the fingers and all that. So disease, one of the disease which we can study is about ringworm. Ringworm is caused by Trichophyton, in that it is caused by a species which is called as Trichophyton rubrum. So ringworm, usually they prefer hot and moist conditions. So between our toenails and all that, our skin is always hot and it is moist, right? So there and all they tend to grow. So heat and moisture helps these fungi to grow, which makes them thrive between the skin folds, that is between the fingers, between the toes and all that, and also sometimes in the groin region, that is between the thighs also we can find these Trichophyton rubrum growing, because they usually need a moist and a hot area to, or a warm area to grow. So the pathogen that causes ringworm is Trichophyton rubrum. R-U-B-R-U-M. It's Trichophyton rubrum is the pathogen. So what are the symptoms of ringworm. So appearance, so they'll have lesions. So whoever develops ringworm, they will have a irregular circular lesion, and if you see the lesion will be somewhat reddish or pinkish in color, and they will have dry, scaly, itchy skin there. So that is about the symptoms. And these lesions can develop in the skin, nails, scalp as well. And these lesions are also accompanied by intense, uncontrollable itching will also be in those lesions. So how do they spread? So ringworms are generally acquired from an infected person to healthy person. If you use the comb of the infected person, if you use the towel of the infected person, pillowcases of the infected person, and all that. So always, if anybody in the family is having a ringworm, make sure that you don't use their things and belongings, and every now and then clean all these things and belongings properly. So this is about fungi. So we studied the various pathogens, bacterial, viral, helminths, and fungal pathogens that causes infections in humans. So this was about this session. So in the coming session, we shall learn about the life cycle of Plasmodium. So we learnt about the protozoan, right, wherein we learnt about Plasmodium vivax that causes malaria. So how exactly the malaria thrives inside the body of the humans, how they multiply and how they cause the infection, we will look into, wherein we'll study that under the life cycle of Plasmodium, and also we'll study what are the different preventive measures to control the spread of these infectious diseases. So with these two topics, we shall meet again in the coming session. So see you in the coming session. Thank you.